Okay, so I always ask the same question to start out with, which is how many of my typing sessions have you watched before?
Maybe 5?
Okay. And when you're watching them, do you feel like you've got a good sense of what I'm concluding from what people's answers are?
Uh, it's been a while since I watched any. Uh, I think so. I think I had a good idea, or I agreed with your points.
Okay, cool. So can you articulate a bunch of small insignificant events comprising your day earlier, such as well, you probably know the routine.
Uh, well, right now I'm in between jobs, so my next job starts January 4th, so I have a lot of off time. So I was thinking, actually, I was thinking about that, how I wanted to plan my day, but I didn't end up really planning my day. But I did have a productive day. So it's kind of, I walked my dog, I made lunch, mm, and did a whole bunch of work and emails and stuff.
What gets you out of bed in the morning? Like for me, I think, well, I kind of would like to have a cigarette.
Because I had to go pee.
Okay. All right. And then you just think, well, I might as well just stay up now.
Yeah. If I don't get up, I know I'll have bad mental health, but I definitely am more the type to like not get out of bed unless there's a reason.
So if you're lying in bed too much, that means you're not in a good place.
Yeah, I don't like wasting time.
Okay.
Too much time, guys.
Um, how many hours of sleep do you think you need a night, though?
7?
Do you think you get that many?
Usually, yeah. I sleep a lot.
Do you go to bed at the same time every night, or does it change?
Usually at around the same time, but I'm in a bad habit where I'll watch a movie, so I always just fall asleep. I don't
Okay.
really know what time to fall asleep at.
So you fall asleep with sound and images going on in the
No, I turn it
background?
off and then I fall asleep.
Oh, you turn it
I
off then fall
usually,
asleep. Okay.
yeah.
So is it like your eyes start to get heavy and then you go, this is keeping me awake, I'm going to turn it off?
Yeah, because I get bored and then I'm like, I should be going to sleep.
Okay. What does it feel like if you get up in the morning and you haven't gotten enough sleep? What does it physically feel like?
I always feel tired when I wake up. It feels it feels like my body just wants to like get absorbed into the earth.
Okay.
And but in a negative way, like I don't feel well about it. And my mind feels slow.
You feel heaviness right here when you're tired. I mean, like when you have to get up before you're ready.
I feel it more in my brain and like my muscles and the tension.
Okay. Do you do you naturally stretch or do you stretch willfully? So
More
naturally,
will.
I mean, but naturally stretch means you're in bed in the morning and you're waking up or going to sleep and that's naturally stretch. Stretch willfully is okay. Like I'm gonna touch my toes, kind of.
Oh no. Okay, the first.
Okay. Do you find yawning contagious?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, how regular are you about feeding yourself?
Like beating myself up.
No, feeding yourself.
Oh, I'm not super regular. I recently was taking care of a baby, and that really forced a good routine on me, which I noticed was like really helpful for me. And also, that baby drank a lot of water, so I was drinking a lot of water too. Um, but in terms of feeding myself, like when I don't have like a enforced routine or a routine that naturally fits, then I'm all over the place. Like sometimes I don't eat at all until night. Other times I eat more regularly.
How much does hunger link to your emotional state?
I'm pretty volatile. I'd say if I'm hungry, I won't be happy.
Okay. And
But I can also ignore that. Like, I can ignore the physical pain of hunger.
so, if you're hungry and it's making you fussy, are you aware that you're fussy because you're hungry, or are you likely to attribute it to some larger problem and then later go, "Oh, it turns out I was just hungry. Never mind all that stuff."
Yeah. I don't know how good I am at listening to those signals and kind of protecting my mood. Um, I think I would definitely in the moment like be doing both. I'd be complaining that I'm hungry and also attributing my mood to like bigger overall things that annoy me.
Okay. Um, how regular are you about keeping up with relationships and making them persist across time? Like, are you somebody who hangs out with Jenny and then forgets about her for a couple months before you call her again, or do you try to keep regular contact to keep those relationships?
Yeah, I'm pretty good at keeping contact with people as long as they're sort of in like my mind. So like if I'm going to school or work and I'm seeing these people regularly, it's very easy for me to maintain those. But some important relationships that I have over time that are just further away from me in my day to day, yeah, I'd say it's more the later where I go months without talking to them.
Okay. Are there people who call you and contact you and make sure that the two of you talk, that despite the fact that they called you last time and the time before, they're calling again, and you feel guilty because you haven't called them and you haven't taken your turn, or is that not a phenomenon that's familiar to you?
More it's me who's the one calling everyone else. If I didn't, and I actually, when I was little, I used to get really angry and upset because I thought that it meant that, like, oh, these people don't really care about me, and I'm sort of putting in more effort into the relationship than others. And in general, there is a tendency for me to go a little bit above and beyond what the other person is doing for the relationship. So, but definitely, I'm the first to call, always.
Okay. Are you somebody who remembers people's birthdays, or are you just gonna call when the mood strikes you?
There's times when I'm lucky that I happen to catch that it was their birthday just in time to wish them a birthday. I'm not great at remembering them. No.
Okay. Do you have any creative pursuits or hobbies or endeavors or works in the projects, stuff like that?
Yeah, I have some art that I draw. Um, and I'm trying to create music right now, but I'm stuck on learning GarageBand and Ableton Live because I really like electronic music. So I'm trying, and I really got into Grimes. She's just this phenomenal Canadian musician because what's special about her is that she is completely indie and broke through to like pop culture, like being in the news and stuff, which is not easy. And she isn't, she's talented for sure,
Uh,
but it's interesting to
but she
watch that.
she broke through by getting with Elon Musk.
Well, that is another interesting thing about her. It's very yeah, the whole chapter is just like she knows how to tell a good tale because it's very interesting.
All right, cool. Um, can uh, can you tell me about movies or TV shows that you watch purely for entertainment, not to learn anything?
Okay, I still learn from them though all the time, but they're more entertainment for me. I really like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Um, I like reality TV for the psychology of it and seeing these dynamics that are exaggerated played out. And RuPaul's Drag Race, which again I would argue is pretty uh, educational actually because you're learning a lot about art and like how to put together a look.
Okay. Um, do you like there to be a competition element in
I
shows?
do.
Okay, so you want somebody to get booted off the island, proverbially, as they say.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you watch any Big Brother?
No.
How about Love Island? Did you watch Love Island?
No, but I did watch the one where they get married at the end. What was it? Love is Blind?
I've not seen it, but okay, cool. Rachel and I watched some of Big Brother, and I kind of got into that. She was got into Love Island. She was watching some of that one, and I caught the end couple of episodes of it, and it seemed like it was pretty interesting. Then we tried watching Naked and Afraid of Love. Are you familiar with that show? Are you familiar with Naked and Afraid?
No, is it?
Naked.
What's
Okay, so Naked and Afraid is a show where the Discovery Channel takes one man and one woman and puts them out in the wilderness butt naked, with only like they each get to bring one thing. So like one guy will bring a machete and the other person will bring like a pot to put water in or something. And then they have to live out there for 21 days, build their own shelter, hunt their food, etc. Well, then they decided to make Naked and Afraid of Love, which has very few elements of Naked and Afraid in it. Like, in other words, there's not really any survival to it. It's basically just let's put a bunch of 16 naked people separately on this little island and have them kind of meet each other, gather together eventually, and then try to date while all being naked on a on an island together.
Does it work?
It didn't. It wasn't a very entertaining show. It wasn't as. It's surprising. We watched the first couple episodes, and and then it got. I don't know. It's such a weird dynamic. If you can imagine these people trying to date in that dynamic, like let's say you were on that show. Okay, so you've been cast on Naked and Afraid of Love. First of all, do you have second thoughts before the day arrives when you're supposed to get on the plane and go to this tropical island and participate, or are you still down?
Second thoughts.
Okay. Do you think you're going to get on that plane?
Probably.
Okay. And so, how capable do you think you'd be of roughing it for an extended period of time, like a couple of weeks, which is to say, you're naked, obviously, but there's also like sand and
Yeah. That was
sunshine.
actually my concern when like should I turn back? I was worried about the germs
Okay, the
and sand
germ,
and
sunburn and stuff like that.
oh yeah, didn't think of that.
You look like
Uh,
you could probably use some sunscreen.
Definitely. Yeah. I would still rough it though. I could rough it.
Okay, cool. Do you think that would be, and you try to take advantage of that opportunity to actually find a partner, or you just think it would be an adventure?
An adventure.
Okay.
I think if you end up finding a partner, you're unlucky because then it becomes more like real and then you're invested and then it loses some of its fun.
I see. Okay. I'm gonna ask you to let's do this one. Can you tell me all of the reasons or a number of reasons you can think of why a person might want to become a submariner? That is to say, somebody who's in the Navy but works on submarines inside of submarines.
Well, maybe because I think it's going to be interesting. Maybe the isolation will be like one of those exotic things, like going to Nunavut or something like that. And maybe they like order and authority and feel comfortable there. Like they have you know what I think I would like about being on a submarine is that there's a set job that I have and it's really direct and easy for me to understand and do. And I do like, I'm not saying that kind of job is menial because I actually have no idea what that job entails, but I definitely like menial jobs where I know exactly what I have to do and what has to get done.
It's like you got to rotate the torpedoes. Take out the old torpedoes from the tubes, put them back in the stack at the back, put the next ones, because otherwise they go stale if you leave them there for too long.
Yeah, that would be a lot of that's some big labor, and not being able to see outside at all is kind of scary.
So, what do you think the most important skills would be for somebody to be a successful submariner?
Strong, fit, like probably a disciplined routine. Like they eat, they get up, they eat, they work. and they do whatever they do in their free time.
Do you think you'd chafe under enforced regularity like that, where you go to bed at the same time, get up, do your shift, blah blah blah, or you'd think, oh, I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do?
No, I would be worried. I want to be on time in that kind of scenario, and I don't like letting people down. So the pressure, I think, to conform would be there to like, I'm like part of the team. If I don't do my job, then it's not going to get done properly for everyone else.
Okay.
And so I think I could, but I'd have to know that there's an end date to that. I definitely think I'd be scared to do that forever.
Okay. So let's say you're going to a party. Are you more likely to say, well, Dave and Sue are there, and they're very fussy, and so I just hope that you know that it's because they're very particular, and I hope they have vegan food for them, because if they don't, they're going to be all fussy about it, blah blah blah. Or are you more likely to say, well, they better have vegan food because I'm coming, and I don't want to go to that party if it doesn't meet my criteria?
Me. I would be thinking more about me because it's not my responsibility to take care of the others when it comes to their diet and stuff. Like, I assume all those details are taken care of by the host.
Okay. If you have a party, or let's say it's Thanksgiving dinner at your house or something, and old Uncle Doug comes over to join the festivities, and he's drunk, and he starts a big fight over politics with Steven, cousin Steven, and it's kind of a disaster by the time everybody leaves. Do you feel like you have ownership of that failure as the host, or are you just like, well, shit happens?
I think I would, yeah, I think I would feel ownership of like failing to host. Hosting events like that, like I've thought about this and hosting, because when I have birthday parties where I invite large crowds to my house or whatever, I don't like it because I do get really anxious, which I don't know how that fits with with my personality type that I think I am, but I do get really anxious because I'm worried that other people aren't having a good time. And I guess I see that as my responsibility as the host. Like, this is why I would not really want to plan a wedding ever, because weddings just like a huge hassle, and then you're there and you spent a lot of money and everyone wants like a little piece of your attention, and it's really just kind of, I don't know. And also there's a lot of pressure on weddings because that really shows off exactly where you see those people in relation to the other people in your life. Like, how close are you to the corner versus are you right beside them at the main table, kind of thing.
Okay. And you feel like having to pay attention to, okay, don't forget, Julianne doesn't like Sarah, so we better not sit them at the same table. Do you find that very like unpleasant work, so to speak?
I find it like, if I was going to be doing a seating arrangement, I would be like taking that into account because I want to have a good time at my party. So if I can avoid issues that are easy to avoid just by separating those two, I would. And I wouldn't be too annoyed to do that because I really want the party to go smooth for
Okay.
myself.
Okay. So let's say you forgot about that, and you've sat Sarah and Angie together at the same table, and before too long, you can hear a cat fight a brewing in the back corner of the room with them. You hear the voices raising and stuff, and so are you upset at yourself for failing to have remembered that, or failing to have accounted for that, or are you just upset at them for being so difficult?
I think I'm upset at them.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, mostly I think I would just, because I would think like, yes, I didn't separate you two and I maybe should have, but considering I didn't, you should then, now it's on, the onus on you to get along because it's my party.
And you'll cry if you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. What makes you more defensive? Somebody accuses you of being illogical or rude?
Rude. It would bother me more for people to call me rude.
Okay. How about unkind or rude?
I would definitely be more upset for somebody calling me unkind.
Okay. How about rude or unreliable?
I would be more
Keep going through there.
unreliable.
Okay, that would make you more mad at yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is assuming that people are telling the truth. And, in other words, that you actually were rude, you actually were unreliable. All right, so how about unreliable or boring, repetitive?
I would be offended if someone said I was boring and repetitive.
More than unreliable?
Yeah.
And what would your response to that be? That you're not, or that why are you calling me names or something?
Yeah, I might resort to be pointing out that they're calling me names and to what end. Or I might take it
Well,
and
I'm
then
hoping to get you to stop being so boring.
yeah, and then well, I would probably just create chaos to show you that I'm not boring.
Okay, so when you're creating chaos, are you saying a lot of words or are you dancing on the tabletops?
More words, yeah.
Okay. Do you, let's say you see something that you think's not cool happening in the world, like maybe somebody's being talking to, like, there's a couple and the dude's talking to the chick in a very demeaning fashion and like, you need to blah, 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 blah. Are you gonna go up and say anything or do anything?
Probably. Well, okay, it depends. In that specific case, I have to judge whether how likely I think that person is going to escalate to like a violent, like if I'm endangering another person by sort of putting in my 2 cents. So you have to kind of use wisdom. But like if it was like something that was less prone to going in that direction, like uh well, one time there was this person who um definitely appeared to be high on some kind of drug, and they were bothering this woman with 3 young kids, and that bothered me because like it's COVID. It was at the beginning of COVID. We were in a lockdown, and this guy was like coming right up behind her, and she was scared. I could see she was scared, and I yelled at him. So like that kind of stuff. Yeah, I will. I am pretty confrontational, like especially with strangers, which I don't know if that's such a good trait or wise, because I feel like I should treat people like strangers better in general, because you never know like what kind of day they had.
That's true. I've heard that before, and I always thought that's a very true thing. You never, you got to remember that whoever you're dealing with, you don't know what they've exactly what kind of day they've had, what they've gone through right before that, or what's going on with them, and so their behavior may be totally not representative of how they normally are.
But I do think that any DOMs in general are probably the best at predicting, like getting a vibe for somebody and seeing what kind of limits they can push with any one person.
Oh, you mean you think you've got a good sense of when don't fuck with this person?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
mean,
it still gets me in trouble anyways, because bystanders don't always are not always as happy to see how far I take things.
well, I mean, I will say this: it's definitely the truth that I know. I have a good ability to do exactly what you just said. Avoid the worst consequences of my own kind of carelessness in that regard. So it's an interesting observation. Okay, let me ask you your thoughts about truth. What is truth?
I don't really know. I feel like I should know though. I think I should have an answer for this, but I don't, because like knowledge, I guess truth is knowledge. Like, what is reality as it is probably like the closest definition to truth.
Okay.
But like, I mean, I'm confused because if you don't really, because how can you really know what reality is? Like, you really can't. And like, for example, your mind really is just this thing that takes in information and it constructs a story. But the story it's constructing can totally be fabricated and not actually representing the reality of like our conscious earth experience.
Okay.
So
So
so I'm kind of like, I don't like at that point when you kind of know, like, okay, my brain's creating these hallucinations and then I'm seeing you on my computer and I can hear myself talking. But really, it's all just an hallucination. So
that's
I guess
all a
it's like a bridge
hallucination.
metaphor or something.
I mean, the thing is, it's kind of like playing a massively multiplayer online role playing game, in the sense that everybody's rendering the same environment independently on their computer. So there is a shared reality, but at the same time, it's kind of an illusion in the sense that there isn't really a, a planet somewhere where all these digital people are. It's just independently rendered on each person's computer. So it's kind of like we can conclude that functionally there is a place where all these people go for all intents and purposes, but even though there really isn't, it's kind of like that, I think. But regardless, I don't want to get all super talking about philosophy. I just want to get your thoughts on it. Do you feel as though aesthetic truths mean anything? That some things are more aesthetically good, beautiful, artistically correct than other things?
Uh, I mean, I hesitate to say yes, but the answer is not really no either, because I definitely have preferences, strong preferences in my own art for something that I reject as like a do-over and like concept failed and it's not quite what I wanted to achieve, like aesthetically, versus something that I think is just aesthetically beautiful naturally. So like beauty is everywhere. It's just in how you can perceive it. And
Okay.
it's more like catching a surf.
Okay. Can you break the task of sweeping off the patio into exactly 4 steps?
Um, okay, number one, get broom. Number two, go outside, unless the broom's outside. Uh, number three, sweep all the leaves into one pile. Number four, put all the leaves in the bag that you already set out.
Okay, that's cool. Um, what if, let's say, I were a corporate CEO slash HR director, and let's say I'm the HR director. Now, you've just been hired by the CEO for reasons unknown to me, the HR director. And you're in my office, and I say, okay, well, the CEO tells me you have been hired, that he really likes you and wants you to work here, and he's paying you this, you know, top level salary and everything. But he didn't give me any instructions about what you should do in our big multinational corporation that does lots of different things. So can you please tell me, as HR director, where I should put you in this corporation to help to maximize your utility to us?
Uh, okay, so I'm in charge of where I want to go.
And what kind of
I'm
job you want to do. There's jobs of all sorts here in this corporation, from mailroom to.
Oh, okay. I want to be doing a job that allows me maximum time to think without actually doing any work, if that makes sense. Because I do think that that is actually where I shine, is when I'm making bigger decisions, big picture decisions. Although, how do you get there? I assume you have to climb that ladder and prove your skills at like building a foundation in the real world. But that's what I'd want to be doing.
Okay. So sit around and think. Let's see what those which of our jobs meets that description.
Well, I
Um,
would imagine that that's what CEOs do. Like the people who have to decide.
they have a lot of meetings.
Yeah, they have a lot of meetings. which I never really thought meetings were real work. I mean, they are, I guess. You're sharing information. That's necessary. But it's not the same as like going paper and pen and solving a problem that you have to solve.
I mean, the thing is, I guess if you're a CEO and you're having a meeting, you're dealing with, if it's a big corporation anywhere, you're dealing with other upper management people who then take your instructions and decisions or whatever and implement them. And then you have another meeting coming back to see how the progress on that is. And what about this other project? It's all organized into sort of like projects. Basically, a CEO is like a big project manager.
Yeah.
He's a project manager. It's like he's a project manager of project managers. So, anyway, okay. Can you define the word page for me? And I mean in the most normal sense of the word, not like a person that you call over to serve you. Like there's that kind of page. I don't mean that. I mean like a regular page.
Um, a page is a page is a part of a book that it's hard to describe. It's hard to describe what a page is. A page is sometimes a piece of paper, but it can be made out of anything, and it is one plane that you can look on of a book that contains information. And usually books contain many pages because all the information doesn't fit on one piece of paper.
So then, what if I have a papyrus scroll? How many pages is that?
Yeah, that's one page, I guess,
Okay.
because the page is very long.
Okay. That's how Jack Kerouac wrote On the Road. He got a typewriter with a roll of endless paper that it was just a roll of paper, like of typing paper without any pages. So he just kept typing, it just kept rolling out.
Maybe he didn't want to disrupt his flow.
I guess so. Yeah.
But then when you edit it, that would be a nightmare and a half. You'd go down like your longest hallway and just crawl along it.
I mean, it depends how NI you are on the outset going into it, right? Like, so if you're an NE Dom and you write like that, you're right. You're definitely creating yourself a massive amount of work later on, because if you're not doing at least some editing along the way, you're just spewing. You're not doing art,
Mm.
Okay, so let me ask you some TI questions now, and we'll see how that goes. Okay. And I ask these questions knowing that you are self-diagnosed ENFP, and so we'll see how the TI questions go. Can you tell me if some horses like to eat cranberries, and all things that like to eat cranberries are named Steve, is it necessarily the case that some horses are named Steve?
My instinct is to say no, but I can't tell you exactly why. It's because all horses are named Steve, or all horses eat cranberry.
Some horses eat cranberries. All
Okay.
things that eat cranberries are named Steve.
Oh, then I'm wrong. It's the opposite. Yeah, all horses that eat cranberries have to be named Steve then.
Okay. That's true, which comprises some of the total population of horses. How about this question? If it freezes, then the tomatoes will die. And if the tomatoes die, we will have to move to Des Moines on Tuesday. Okay. It's Wednesday, and we're still in Los Angeles. What can we conclude?
The tomatoes didn't die,
And anything else?
and it didn't freeze.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me who my mother's father's sister's only brother's wife is? My mother's father's sister's only brother's wife.
That should be your Your great aunt.
No, it's your grandmother. Your mother's father's sister is your great aunt. Her brother is him again. Her only brother is him again, and
Oh,
his wife is your grandmother.
uh,
Okay. What do you think about those kind of questions in general? Like, do you have a position on this issue of black and white thinking versus, I guess you'd say, more ambiguous kinds of logics?
no, I'm really confused. I don't really understand what TI is. I think I loosely understand what TE is. I think that TE is, to me, feels like it really is good at picking up what are the most important pieces of information in order, like what can I use versus what I can't use. And everything I can't use, I don't remember. Also, I think TE is like I'm really good at looking at opposites. If I don't get something, then I just think, what is the opposite of it? And what would that look like? And that helps me to understand something tricky to understand, which I assume a TI user would not be able to relate to.
Can you give me an example?
Um, it's hard to think of an example. Uh, so like, mm, okay, like I don't really know how I use it, but for example, just thinking about how many people make their beds in the morning versus how many people don't make their beds in the morning. If I can think about both those scenarios, it gives me a really complete picture.
Huh.
I feel like maybe a TI user would go along the lines of, okay, did this one person make their bed? And then how did that affect the rest of their day? And then they would go and look at the next house down and say, did that person make their bed today? No, they didn't. Okay, how did their day go? And like on like
Okay,
that.
so you're just what you're differentiating from between here is NI and SI. So in other words, SI says I will know specific things by experiencing specific things, and I will check a general rule by checking a bunch of specifics to see if they match up with it, and or I will infer a general rule when when I experience multiple instances of the same thing, whether it's hasty generalization or not. So, what you're drawing a distinction here between is NI and SI, and you're saying
Mm,
you you're in you prefer the intuitive knowledge function, or at least that it's more conscious than the in terms of a value than the particularist or experiential knowledge function. Now, that's not inconsistent with fifth slot NI, which, in other words, if you are in fact an intuitive, if you are in fact an ENFP, it would be consistent that you'd prioritize the intuitive knowledge function because that's what's going to pair up best with your dominant intuition rather than with the fourth slot particularist knowledge function, even though that's what you'd be using actually most of the time. So, in terms of expressing as values versus expressing as actual usage, things are it's hard if you are in a 4 or 5 with the knowledge. That's always where I say you can't really distinguish there. So, in other words, if you have SI NI in the 4 or 5 in either way, either direction, then I can't use SI or NI to tell you what type you are. Basically, I have to use something else to get there. And
mm.
that's what TI is me saying I can deduce what type you are without using this piece of information about these things because these other things will lock things into place and necessitate definitionally some other things. So, okay, I can't tell if you're TI polar or not. I would say that on any technical sense, you passed the TI polar test as not TI polar. But,
Yeah, I had to put a lot of effort in though to do that. I was like visualizing exactly what you were saying while you were saying it.
okay. So the thing is, also, I I suspect it's possible to like get a little bit better at the TI questions than you would otherwise be if you know enough about what kind of TI questions I ask coming in. So it's possible, but I don't know. I still my jury's out on whether you're TI polar or not.
I have an engineering degree, and I think that I've had exposure to those types of questions before. So, like, when I told you my first initial instinct is this, it's because I was picking up on the words you were using, and I'm just like, I know most likely the answer is this, because when I've seen other questions like
Okay.
that, that was the side that it aired
I
on.
mean, actually, that's rather convincing or something. It's like you got an engineering degree, and your TI is that shitty.
I know. When I messed up, I would be like, how is it possible that my solution's not correct? It was always TI. It
Okay,
was always
so
TI.
like this is telling that about how distinct the different kinds of smart are. It's like you being able to solve problems and coming up with ordinated solutions to concrete situations put in front of you is a very different kind of logic than being able to answer this kind of deductive reasoning problems or being able to justify things with logical justifications. So, like, if I were going to ask you to justify, like, okay, so why is it that you think that we should get rid of the laws against they criminalize mushrooms? Let's pretend you have that position. You're opposed to laws that criminalize mushrooms, the drugs, mushrooms, and you wanted to make an argument as to why those laws are bad. But argue that position for me.
Okay, so I'm the one that's arguing that I'm for mushrooms to be available, but they're
For
not illegal.
decriminalizing and or legalizing mushrooms, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I would say there is massive potential for those chemicals or drugs to have positive impact, like have real medical. Okay, I guess like there's two sides of this argument. One is that you have like these hippies who are just going in circles doing mushrooms. I mean, my argument against that is, why are you against hippies going and doing that? And like, hippie's kind of a mean word to some, maybe, but like these people who are willing to go and do that to their bodies, teach their own. They're not hurting anyone. And I'm really not that concerned because I haven't seen the data to prove to me that it's a significant risk to our roads and safety with driving. And then, so yeah, so I would debunk that. And then I would say we should do it because this is a whole class of drugs in which there is, number one, money to be made when you figure out how to use them properly. And you're going to help people who have some pretty serious mental illnesses that we have not really been able to help yet.
Okay, so what I heard there were SI kind of SIFI kind of justifications, which were those people have their own experience, we need to respect it. I heard TE justifications, that there are possible positive applications of this, and that it's possible to debunk the negative consequences one might point to. And then I heard also that a sort of a proactive SETE kind of justification, which is we can make money off of it. So all of those things are not TI justifications. The TI justification would be specifically the same thing basically that you said about respecting their experience, except it would be no party can justly infringe upon their autonomy with it, as a general rule, that which is not expressly forbidden for good reason ought to be permitted. So we also ought to be logically consistent with our other policies. Since mushrooms are so much less dangerous for people to consume, in terms of societal costs than alcohol, if we're gonna make alcohol legal, we can't criminalize mushrooms without being hypocritical in some fashion, right? Like those kind of arguments are more TI arguments. So it is true that you're not making any real TI arguments, but let's see. Okay, so I mean, so far it seems like you've got yourself typed correctly, probably. Except the one thing I'm going to say is I'm not sure if you're. I haven't eliminated ESFP as a possibility. So now, look. I mean, the thing is, it would be easy for me to just go, well.
But you think I would know for sure the difference between being SE Dom versus any Dom? Like, those two seem very different. Like,
okay, well, look, that's what I was about to say. Look, it would be easy for me to say, here's what my intuition says or my instincts say, but I'd like to have more concrete reasons to identify you as meow or meow. So, talk to me about your relationship with task completion and procrastination.
Okay, so I'm pretty good at task completion if I feel like I'm on a positive trend. Like if there's a streak, when I did really well in school, when like I would get a good mark, and then that gave me motivation to get another good mark because I wanted to keep the streak going. But if I don't know how to do something and I also don't really want to do it and I'm a little bit scared of it, maybe probably because I don't know how to do it, then yeah, procrastination can definitely get me. But like I've always been able, like the balance between my stress and my actual like ability to absorb and apply information on like an exam was always good enough to make it through reasonably well.
Okay.
So it's always a problem, I'd say, but it's a problem that I always constantly have to deal with, and so far I've been able to deal with it and still function well enough.
Okay, so let's play. I'll tell you the first half of a story. You tell me the end of the story, okay? And I think this was on a video that was published. So if you've heard it before, stop me, okay?
Okay.
So Barbara is going into the bowling alley, and she has with her service animal, which is a peacock. Have you heard this story before?
Nope.
Okay.
Don't think so.
So she goes up to the counter, and the counter worker says, "Hi, can I help you?" And she says, "Yes, I'd like a pair of bowling shoes for myself. I'd like lane 5, and I would like a pair of bowling shoes for my peacock, please." And he says, "Well, we don't really allow peacocks in here, actually." She said, "Well, this is my service animal." And he's like, "Well, okay, but you know what? We don't have shoes for peacocks." And she says, "Well, I mean, how could you discriminate against me like this? I want to talk to your manager." Now you complete the story.
Okay. So the manager comes and asks what's the problem. She says she wants to bowl with her peacock, who's a service animal. And so the manager decides to make the peacock its own shoes from stuff that he already has at the bowling alley. Like maybe empty roll of toilet paper, and then he puts like some stones in the toe to protect the peacock's little talon feet.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how long does a woman have to wait for him
10
to come?
minutes.
It only takes him 10 minutes to make custom shoes for custom bowling shoes for a peacock out of stuff he has lying around the bowling alley.
He's a genius.
Okay, he's a MacGyver at the bowling alley.
Yeah.
All right, let's try a
I'm not sure where you're aiming with that. I'm like, because I feel like in that story, either she gets what she wants or she doesn't. I don't know.
Okay, well, let's switch the roles. You tell the first half of a story, and I'll tell the second half of the story.
Oh, that's harder. That's a lot of pressure. Okay, a person goes on a walk every day to a coffee shop, and there she develops friends and meets a lot of people. And she even falls in love with somebody. And then from there, they go on walks every single day. And he's a musician. And she wants to be a musician. She really wants to be a musician. So one day, she gathers enough courage to tell the guy that she likes that she wants to be a musician. Okay, now your turn.
And the guy, whose name is Bruce, says, "Well, what instruments do you play, Janine?" Which is her name. And Janine says, "Well, I play the harp, the harpsichord, the pipe organ, the guitar, the bass, drums, the clarinet, the tuba, a saxophone, and a little bit of conga. He says, well, you play a lot of different instruments. And she acknowledges, well, yeah, I do play them all, but I've only played each of them once, and I don't really have any skills at any of them. He says, well, that does pose a problem for your future plans as a preeminent musician. So what I'm going to do first is suggest that let's take you into the studio and see how your voice sounds when you're singing. Maybe I can incorporate you on one of my songs. So they go to the studio, and it turns out Janine is completely tone deaf. She's got no pitch at all. She sounds absolutely horrible. So now, of course, Bruce is like, okay, I like this girl, but she's excited when she comes out of the booth. She takes off her headphones, like, wow, I killed it. It was fantastic. That's a hit. That's a gold hit right there, mister. But Bruce knows it was just actually sounds terrible. So he's really worried about it. And finally he says to her, well, you know what? Listen, Janine, maybe music and you aren't really cut out for each other. And she's devastated. She goes home. She sobs and sobs, eats several pints of ice cream, drinks a pint of rum, and has a pint of cocaine. She's one of the only people in the country who gets cocaine by the pint.
That's a lot of cocaine.
And then but the next morning she wakes up in a hungover daze in some seedy hotel room downtown and says, you know what? I accept my fate. I'm going to go back to being an anthropologist. So, okay. Have you heard Inky Pinky questions before?
Mm-mm.
All right. So, an Inky Pinky question, the example is like this. I'll give you a clue like hilltop water spout. I'll tell you it's an Inky Pinky, which means the answer has 2 syllables in each of the words. And the answer would be mountain fountain. The answer always rhymes. So, again, the clue would be hilltop water spout. The additional information, Inky Pinky, tells you the syllables. Then the answer is mountain fountain. Another example would be roadway flesh. It's an ink pink. That's 1 syllable each word in the answer. And the answer is street meat. Okay? So, this first one is an ink pink. And it's a flying insect large bush.
Wait, I got confused. What is the Inky Pinky?
So it tells you how many syllables. So this being an ink pink means each word in the answer has 1 syllable. Like roadway flesh was an ink pink, street meat. This is an ink pink in that way. The clue is a large bush for a certain kind of flying insect, and it's an ink pink.
So it only has 1 syllable, and it's a bush? A specific bush?
A specific kind of flying insect that goes with a large bush. That's the clue.
Bee?
Tree. Bee tree.
Oh, bee tree. Okay, I kind of get it.
All right, so let's try another one. So this is a bunny addiction, and it's an Inky Pinky.
Playboy bunny?
It's a rabbit habit. So see, the answer always rhymes. A bunny addiction is a rabbit habit.
Oh, oh, I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's try another one. This is an attractive cat. It's an Inky Pinky.
Something feline. Oh, it has to rhyme though. Feline, feline, feline. I don't know.
It's a pretty kitty.
That's awful.
Can
Pretty
you
kitty.
can you make up one for me?
Okay, so basically I just need to find 2 rhyming words and then a hint.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it hard to do this without talking out loud. Like, I'd just be like, frog rhymes with, I don't know. I find this really tricky to do. I don't know.
Okay, so you're not gonna like this, but you are an ESFP.
ESFP.
As far as I can
Because
tell,
I'm not going to come up with is that an any thing?
Those are NE
An any
tests. I've given you a number of NE tests, and in each of them, you demonstrated competent, but not front stack or dominant NE, which is consistent with ace slot. Your NE should never really fail you for what you need it to do, but it's
Mhm.
not your nature.
Yeah. I mean, I just really can't see myself being an SE Dom. I mean, maybe I could look into what an ESFP is. And actually, when I was very first typed, like one of those online things where you have like the thousands of questions, I did get an ESFP to start, and then I read the description without reading any of the other descriptions, and I was like, yes, that's me. But then ENFP fit so much more, and I
Look,
think it will.
look, you're obviously academically successful.
Mhm.
And ESFPs in the stereotypes are not academically successful. However, those stereotypes are largely bullshit in that,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, you get a lot of ESFPs who end up registered nurses and a variety of other jobs that utilize their both absolute value of and very competent extroverted thinking, which you demonstrated in all of your justifications as well. You know, it's like you're good at articulating various extroverted thinking style considerations or impacts calculi, and that's going to be more significant in most realities in the world than it is sort of legalistic thinking, which is basically TI. So, but the thing about the extroverted sensing part, it's not so much the problem I have is that I frequently have with extroverted sensors in general, be it first slot or second slot, is it's very easy for me to explain or understand why they are extroverted sensors instead of extroverted intuitors. Like I can explain to you your extroverted intuition is A slot because your answers were like this instead of like that. I can explain to you that as a consequence, combined with the pretty evident third or fourth slot TE and what seems pretty clear, FI operational rather than absolute, it seems to all fit into place. But it's hard for me to explain SE because all the current explanations of it are bad. What I will tell you is this: it's being an SE Dom means you know how much action will create how much impact, and you know when to use impactful action and when not to use impactful action. So what that means is, for example, if you were in an argument with somebody that you make statements that derail the existing pile of words and kick it back down to the framework level so that people have to adjust to a new thing. But regardless of how I explain SE, people, especially in the second slot, but also sometimes in the first slot, don't identify with it on a regular basis.
Yeah, I would say that I definitely, like, at least relevant to my goals, my personal goals, I don't understand how much energy or impact is going to be required from me. And I also am pretty protective of I learned this, I'm pretty protective of my energy. Like, that's one of my biggest, like, concerns when I think, am I going to fail? Because so I did the engineering and then I didn't really like working, so I went back and did midwifery. And being a midwife that's where that really came from, where like I was like, I am so aware now of how guarded I have always been with my energy. Like, for example, like when your sister calls and you don't really want to pick up because you don't want to have like an hour-long conversation necessarily, because it's gonna drain you.
Okay, well, I mean, having an hour-long conversation with your sister is going to drain you for sure because that's asking you to do a lot of demonstrative FE, which is going to be tiring.
Yeah, and it really does tire me.
But that's not an SE thing. That's an F thing. The thing to remember about ESFPs is Fs, both the Fs, Fi and Fe, are instrumental values, not absolute values. So things that are contingent upon the Fs are work. for me, it's the same thing with the T's. I may be very logical, but it's nevertheless work. Like it's work that comes super easy to me, realistic thinking. But I also know it's going to involve me providing some more utility based kinds of reasoning as well, probably. And regardless, those things are only instrumental to me for F and intuitive values. So to be creative and clever and new, and pop intuitively, and to be liked by people, and to get to do what I want when I want to. Those are my absolute values. But ESFPs are a little bit more. I mean, the thing is, you're in tune with what you want enough to take the action to change and try something different. So, how did you like midwifery?
Uh, well, I think that was like I went in with very little information, and I went and fully committed to it, and that was not a strategic business move. I knew financially it didn't make sense to do it, but I did it anyways because I definitely prioritized in gaining knowledge over my own safety or my future safety. And then, uh, but what happened was I really didn't like what I saw there, like how it was run. The medical system in general is full of, like, if I'm going to use a stereotype to describe the most amount of people that have the worst traits there, it's very, very insecure people who go there and are smart people. They don't really even have a reason to be insecure, not really. But they're so insecure that it's like they go there because they need an excuse to exist, and their excuse is their skill set in medicine. And and then when they see other people doing things like new, so that doesn't leave any room for new thought or growth or improvement, because when they see new things happening, they bully those voices. And I saw that left, right, and center at all stages, faculty onto students, and then employee to employee, boss to employee at all levels. So I didn't stay because although I really liked being able to support a woman in labor, like I can really sit with somebody who's hysterical and tell them, breathe, breathe. And I can really sit with their emotion and help people process their emotions in those highly volatile situations. But I could not stand the other people. And I'm like, I cannot do this. I'm like, I cannot give myself a life of being bullied and not liking anyone that I work with at all. And like, so I was like, yeah, I felt like, I'm like, I gotta improve the system, but I'm not going to, I don't know. I think other people have said that too about the medical system.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I'm going to convince you or if I even really have any ultimately convincing arguments that can can be linked definitively enough to test results, but my conclusion is that you're an ESFP, and another example of why people shouldn't underestimate ESFPs because obviously they can accomplish a lot of good things. I've noted also a lot of people come to me having been typed by somebody else before, and the one who's most consistently either right or close is Amy, and she's an ESFP. So, I mean, it's like it's not the case that knowers are the best people to type people because they go with their gut too much. Either their first instinct is right or it's not, but then they don't want to they don't want to let go of their first instinct, or they go they they go with what they've learned before, whether it's correct or not. Like, so you get like C.S. Joseph. Well, he's got lots of experience being wrong. It doesn't matter to him because he's using his SI as a tool function. So
Does that mean he's not a tool? Is tool tertiary?
it's second.
So, oh, okay. So wait, if I'm an ENSFP, that means that I have any demon. What does that show up as? Because I mean, that's kind of a weird flip to make a mistake on. Because I'm like literally what I think I'm the best at, and then bam.
No, I mean, well, look, I don't know what C.S. Joseph has to say, but he's one who uses that term. I don't use that term demon. Eighth slot for me is it expresses simply as this: your eighth slot is a thing you have perfectly balanced. It's It's on autopilot. You don't have to think about it ever. It's always there to serve the needs as defined by your dominant function. So, what that means for me, my SE is eighth slot. Would you say that it's a problem area for me? No, you'd say that you do shit tons of stuff, Eric. You complete shit tons of little things. You
Yeah.
upload constant videos. So then why aren't you an SE Dom? Well, because my SE is being dragged on a leash slash is directing my SE to pull it in front of it, either one of those things, by my NE all the time. So yes, I upload a lot of videos, and it's always it's always changing what I'm uploading. So the channel never gets to become something. It's almost like with your as an NE Dom, it's not me who's SEing. If that were the case, then it would end up you'd end up doing something specific. Instead, it's my NE that's SEing. So it always is just shifting, and like sometimes I make comedy videos, sometimes I make music, sometimes I do long videos, sometimes I do short videos, sometimes I do videos with my cats, and it's like everything under the sun. That because whatever seems new and appealing to my extroverted intuition, my extrovert sensing picks up its weary axe, and it's the underappreciated, under-recognized helper that that's the eighth slot function. Is you don't even really I've often said in the past it's your least conscious function too. Like I can never catch myself SEing. I go from sitting feeling not feeling like doing whatever to all of a sudden doing something, and I once again missed that moment when I somehow paid attention to taking action. So you probably feel the same way about your extroverted intuition if you understand it as what it is rather than what you may think it is, which is to say,
What is it?
it's it's a desire to deviate from the no, from the correct obvious answer. So the thing is, when I say it's in service to your SE, you're doing what's correct and obvious until what's correct and obvious doesn't satisfy you or doesn't work anymore. So in other words, what other people perceive as correct and obvious, you don't perceive as correct and obvious. And then you deviate from it because your NI has failed in some regard. In the same regard, when my SI has failed, that is to say, when I'm tired of watching my old videos, I get this irrepressible urge to make a new one. And that happens fairly quickly. So in other words, I end up making a lot more videos, spending a lot more time making videos of my own than I do of watching my own videos, although I watch a lot of them too, And as that's what it means. Like when your fourth slot, when your NI single truth no longer resonates to you as true, you kick into NE and say, I'm going to change this motherfucker. And then you don't say, I've got a bunch of ideas I'd like to say about it. I'm not going to go on YouTube and complain about it. That's what I would do, right? That's what any Dom would do.
I really am an SE Dom this whole time. I always wondered, why the hell am I not the best brainstormer? ENFPs are so great at brainstorming, and I was like, coming up with things on the spot is not. I can do, definitely, but I'm not like. It's weird how these two can really be confused because I feel like I always know S types, sensors, and I prefer intuitives. Like that's why I thought I was intuitive. Maybe I am an intuitive. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Although I will say that honestly, I do have a preference for intuitives. I think intuitives think like a couple steps down the line, the more so than sensors. At least the sensors I've met.
You know who else does is ISFPs. So it must be an SFP thing. It's like there are a fair number of ESFPs in the community. When we talk about like who's least interested in typology, it's generally ISTJs, ESTJs, ISFJs, and ESFJs. Those four are the least interested in typology. And those are, when we talk about sensors, we're mostly referring to those four types of people. Like when people in the community talk about them. Things that are common to sensors, they're either going to be talking about ESTPs and ESFPs by mushing them together and just saying, and reducing them to these wild action people, which they aren't. They're, being a dominant means you're the master of it. It's like, you're not wild with it. Anyway, or they'll be talking about sensors in general, in which case they'll probably be referring to those 4 types, right? So it's, they get, in general, these conversations about sensors versus intuitives are way too reductive because it depends which kind of sensor and which kind of intuitive. Like,
okay, I can say I do not like SJs. And this maybe the word SJ is wrong, but like what I don't like in other people the most is the attitude that there is one way to do it, and this is the way we do it. That's the correct way, and that's it. And I live my life this way, and so should everyone else. And I feel like this is like, I don't know if this is an SI Dom thing or an SI parent thing.
SI second slot is mostly like that. Okay, so you're gonna get most of that from the
I really
extroverted SJs. Extroverted SJs.
Yeah, ESTJs do not like. Really don't like. Sorry, ESTJs, but do not like. That's why I would put another argument in for I'm an ENFP.
But no, I mean, look, the thing is, what you don't like about ESTJs specifically is that they view you, to the extent they're going to interact with you, as somebody that they want to designate and delegate certain SE stuff to. And basically, you're like, you're in no position to be telling me how to SE. Okay, that's basically what you think. Because TE is your third slot absolute value. You can do it well enough yourself. And SE is your dominant. You know better how to sort of implement or execute the thing than they do. So you feel like, pyow anytime they talk to you. ESFJs, you're going to feel as though they're judging you on your 6th slot function, that you're not schmoozing enough. And you're going to be like, that's just stupid. And again.
Yeah, those things definitely resonate.
Okay, so I'm going to stop this recording now. Do you want me to share it with you privately, or are you okay with me publishing?
Both, I guess. That way I have a copy.
Oh, yeah, sure. I can do that. No problem. So I'll upload it to Google Drive and share you a copy of it, and then I'll publish it as well?
Yes, please.
All right, fantastic. That's great. Thank you.